Hi there, interior design lovers. Welcome back to the Business of Beautiful Spaces, the podcast where we blend design inspiration with all behind the scenes tips and tricks you need to thrive in your business. I'm your host, Laura Thornton, and with over 27 years in this interior design game and running a 7-figure design company, trust me, I've seen it all. I want to be your interior design bestie. I want to help you build the business of your dreams, make more money, and yes, ditch the stress along the way. I've been doing this for a long time, and now I'm sharing my knowledge with all of you, my fellow designers and decorators. All I ask in return is that you like, review, and follow this podcast wherever you listen, so other designers can find us and learn more too. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's dive into making 2025 your best business year yet. Welcome back to another episode of the Business of Beautiful Spaces with me, Laura Thornton, designer, business owner, and your guide to making this industry work for you and not the other way around. In today's episode, it's part 2 of our 4-part series on building a profitable business. And this one is also close to my heart. I think they all are, really, but we're talking about something that's changed everything for me and so many of you as well. And it's tracking your time. Now, before your eyes, or you're going to skip this episode, I would love for you just to hang tight. I want to challenge you to stick with me because I know what you're thinking, that time tracking just sounds tedious, Laura, and that's not why I became a designer, and I understand that. But I'm going to promise you that knowing where your time actually goes is one of the most powerful tools and ways that you can protect your profits, your energy, and your sanity. And in fact, I'd say it's essential if you want to run a business and not just a hobby. And I'm going to give you a little story here. So I belong to this EO organization. I probably referenced it a few times here. And I always used to think that tracking time was just for designers. I didn't realize that this was a tool that every business uses because it's an efficiency tool. And it's how they can see where any business is being efficient, not efficient, where we're losing time, where we're losing money on inefficiencies or things that just aren't working in our process. And so this was a real aha moment for me, realizing that it was not just designers and decorators and creatives like us that track our time, that this is done in many businesses by many business owners as a tool for efficiency. So let that one resonate for a bit, because I was really pleasantly surprised to learn. And also I can see that for my business, so I could appreciate that other businesses could use that as a tool as well. So, okay, quick reminder before we dive in. A free way to support this show is by heading over to where you listen, whether it's Apple or Spotify, and helping us out with hopefully a 5-star rating, and any review you can also add. It really does help us reach more designers. And I would love to know that you are enjoying these episodes and the time and effort that goes into it. Okay. So are you a time tracker, or is this all new for you? All right, let's get honest, because we know that we all fall off this wagon, or we've all tried it. But I want to talk about a time when I first switched from hourly billing to flat rates. I have always been tracking. I have always known how long it takes me to do things. It's something that I found value in a very long time ago. Mostly because the first job I ever came out doing was in commercial world, and we tracked everything so we could bill back the commercial clients for the time. So I got, used to having a calendar beside me and writing down what I was doing. And I still do that. I've tried all the different trackers. I've tried the online things. But what works best for me, I think it's just because I've been doing this for so long, is to keep a full-paged, 1 page a day calendar beside me. And that is how I track my time. So that works for me. You have to figure out what works for you. But like so many designers, I was thrilled to no longer worry about hourly and using flat fees. I had all this data and all this analytics, and I was like, that's it. I don't need to do it anymore, because I know what it takes me, and I can just figure this out, and I can bill flat fee. But how do you bill for a phone call? How do you bill for an invoice that took me too longer to go? How do you start to use this tool? So I want you to know that I did switch, but I still track all of our time here at the office. And as soon as I became an entrepreneur with my first in-house staff member, all of my data and analytics went out the window, because now it wasn't me doing it. I wasn't the one doing some of the work. It was somebody else in the office, and I didn't know how long it took them to do what they were doing. So this no longer worked for me. So I still had to have everybody track. I still had to figure out the new dynamic and the new analytics and the new data based on a new person in the office doing certain tasks on a project. So the billing became issue, but it definitely became something where I started to wonder if I was losing money or how I was going to track it. And the reality was I needed to go back to tracking time. So, all right. So after the first few projects, I realized something was off. I remember a particular project very clearly. It was a $20,000 flat fee for a cottage. And it was dream on paper. And the client was amazing. And the vision was clear. And I thought, this is going to be so profitable. And then after a few weeks, I decided on a whim that I should actually track my hours because I wasn't sure, this is going back like 2 decades, where I was going to be. And that curiosity on where my time was spent, and I assumed it was maybe 40 hours. When I started to go through everything, the emails, the sort, you could go back and look at how long I talked on a phone call with them, troubleshooting. The contractor was calling me from job sites. I was at 80 hours and I billed for 40. So at the time, I think I was billing $150 an hour, which sounds really lovely. But when it starts to become $75 an hour, is that really as good? No, of course not. So I had doubled the time I expected, and I only realized it after the fact. And all that extra time, I ate right into my profit. And if I hadn't looked, I would have kept going on that path thinking I was still taking the same amount of time on my flat rate. So that is when I realized I can no longer not track hours. I still need to be tracking hours, and it needs to be done on every single project, regardless of how much I think I know after all these years, that I need to make sure that if I am charging a flat rate to my clients, that flat fee is reflective moving forward. And so in order to do that, we use a tracking system. So why does tracking matter? So it matters because if you're not billing hourly, and like I'm going to say, you've heard me say this many a times, we've all shaved hours off of an invoice. We've all done it. I don't know why we feel compelled to do it. If it's guilt or you feel like it's too much or whatever the case may be, we've all done it. And the only people we're obviously doing a disservice to is ourselves. But if we feel that need to do that, and we're already cheapening ourselves and what we're worth, then there's something wrong with that method too. And I never loved being questioned about how long something took me. I hated being asked to defend the hours that I spent looking for something. And, I started to resent it, which is why I really wanted to move to flat rate. But I did that after I had all the data and analytics to do so on multiple projects. But my clients ultimately really loved the flat fee. They loved knowing exactly what a project was going to cost them, but there needs to be boundaries around that as well. I'm kind of getting off topic, but I'll bring it back, I promise. With my flat fee, just so that everyone listening knows, it includes only one revision. And I don't say only one. If we've done the intake forms correctly and we've asked the right questions, one revision is suffice. If they're coming back and it's multiple revisions and there's something wrong, like it's wrong that they're changing their mind or they didn't explain it to you properly or you didn't ask enough questions. But they get one revision included in that flat fee. And when you're calculating your flat fee, you also need to make sure that you're accounting for the revision time. So it's not just the data and the analytics of what you're doing before presentation. It's also making sure you're getting all your data and you're tracking hours on the revisions as well, because you need to factor in an averages on that into your flat fee. So sorry, I took a hard left there and I've gone down a path that wasn't asked for in this, but I wanted to be clear on what's included in our flat fee, only because I don't want you thinking it's endless amounts of revisions and there's no way to reel this in. It's part of our contracts. Okay, so back on track. Time tracking isn't about micromanaging yourself or squeezing every second of productivity out of your day. It is business intelligence. It's about making decisions from a place of clarity. And I want to break that down into a few powerful reasons. And as I mentioned earlier, efficiency equals profit. So when you track your hours and you see how long each phase of your process actually takes, you might discover that sourcing drapery or tile samples is eating up way more time than you thought, especially if you have to drive to multiple venues to pick this. If you don't have a studio yet or you don't have samples in your office, you're driving to multiple places looking for that elusive fabric that nobody knows exists and you don't even know that it exists, but now you've wasted 2 hours driving around. So all of that is part of this. And also the install days. Are they running over by 3 hours consistently? That needs to be allotted for. Are you sitting around waiting with a 3-hour window and you're always at the end of that window and now you've lost 3 hours of time? You shouldn't have lost those hours. They should have been allotted for in your fees or in your allotment for that install day. These aren't just minor annoyances. They're clues to where your profit is literally seeping and leaking away. Here's a real life story. A designer in the Profit Academy kept wondering why her kitchen projects never seemed to be profitable as the bathrooms. And she was tracking her time and realized she was spending almost twice as many hours in a kitchen sourcing and troubleshooting. The fix? Streamlined your vendor list, set firmer boundaries with the client about changes, and built a more efficient sourcing process. And the result? Her profits went up without charging a penny more. Efficiency. No more lost hours. And your clients don't know about all these lost hours. They don't know you're working in the background with 10 extra hours. They just know that that's the fee that they paid, and they don't think anything of it. And you're getting resentful because you're like, they don't even know that I've done all this extra work. No, they don't. They don't know. But if you can be efficient, it doesn't have to happen. You're gaining profits, and you're gaining your time back. Exactly what we're hoping to gain for our clients. So this is another tool that allows you to see bottlenecks. So I'll give you an example in my business with when I had a team that was getting larger and larger and growing a little too quickly, probably in hindsight. And, I was still using older data because I didn't have current data. I realized after 3 or 4 projects in, because we were super busy and I wasn't being as diligent as I am now, that we were not charging enough for the portion of the project where we put the presentation together. So some of our presentations were up to 80, 90 pages long. So somebody in this office, not me, but somebody is having to put it all together. They're having to put the pages together, put all the mood boards together, put it all in, add all the information, add all the data, do all the room summaries. Then after we're all done and we double check it one more time, then we actually 3 people check it before we do the final one. They probably go back again and change some pricing if there was a mistake. Then by the time we actually get to start either making these presentations ourselves in-house or sending them out, we were over 10 hours. That's right, 10 hours of time. And I was allotting somewhere in the 2 to 3 to 4 mark, depending on the scale of the project. So I was losing up to 6 hours of time. That's huge. So I had to quickly start adding more money in for the presentations to be put together because I wasn't recognizing that it was taking far more time than it had before. As the projects grew, the scale grew, the amount of double checking grew, everything grew. And I was still banking on it being a 20 to 40 page presentation, which it wasn't. Another one was I had a junior designer who, bless her heart, was taking forever to source hardware. She had fallen down a Pinterest rabbit hole for hours, didn't realize until we started tracking her time. And I had to go back and say, why were you on 4 hours of Pinterest looking for hardware? Like, we can customize hardware at any time. Here's the supplier. You just tell them what you want and they're going to make it for us. But there was a disconnect between us telling her that that was an option. But again, once we saw it, then we knew we had an issue in multiple places in our process that we needed to fix so that any new designer coming in knew that that was an option and they didn't have to go down the rabbit hole of, 4 hours looking for whatever it is. But once we saw it, we set up a better library, clearer standards, and we had regular check-ins, and suddenly hardware was no longer a time drain for our junior designer, and she was so much happier for it too. So, without seeing these analytics and why we had lost 4 hours on hardware, and let's be clear, there is not that much money to be made on hardware, that was lost hours and lost money and lost time. Okay, so it also allows us to measure improvements. It's not all just negative. Here's the key. When you save time, so now you've gotten more efficient, your team is getting more efficient, you do not lower your flat fee. That extra efficiency is your profit. It's what you gain by becoming more efficient. So over the years, everyone in this office has gotten so much faster at certain tasks, whether it's, creating spec sheets. Used to take hours. Now everything is done in a program. Now we pay for seats on, used to be Design Docs. It's just been renamed Mydoma, I think it's called. Anyway, that has cut down an immense amount of time. So we don't stop and realize, oh, it's, we gained 30 minutes here and there and then pass that savings on to her. That's our prerogative to start using these programs that cost the business money every month for every seat. We do not pass that on. That is our efficiencies and that is our profits to allow us to keep using these tools in our business. So when we cut 90 minutes down to 20 minutes, I don't lower my price. That efficiency is my reward for investing in my systems and growing our skill set here at Thornton Design. I would love for you to implement that in your business as well. And, having these tools and this analytics and this data in your business, it also lets you better forecast. So now you have real data. You can quote new projects with confidence because you're not guessing. There's no more, well, I think I did 40 hours on the last kitchen, so I'll do 40 on this one too. No, you now actually have real data. You know what's involved. You know where the snags were, and now you can price accordingly before you do any work. You can quote confidently to your clients that this is what it's going to take. I will promise you with a flat rate, you will close more jobs, but you don't do it blind. You have to do it with data and analytics, and don't do it until you have that. Okay, so let's talk about the how. You do not need fancy tools to track your time. Like I mentioned, I use a one single page binder. I do get them custom made, so I can, because I write rather large. But there are tools like Harvest and Toggle and other ways to track projects and phases, and it'll break it all down for you. But whatever works for you, stick with that. And in our office, I finally had to give up trying to get everybody to do the same thing. And I was okay with spending an hour every month to go back and put all the different ways together so that I was getting accurate data. So you do what works for you. The method really doesn't matter. It's the habit that does. So here's how we break it down in the studio here. So track hours by project and by phase. So whether it's the consultation, the design phase, the procurement phase, or the project management phase, and our install days. We track everybody's hours. And even if you're a solo, you need to be doing this. Your time is valuable. It is literally quantifiable by a dollar amount. You need to review this weekly, quarterly, monthly, and by project. And once the project is done, don't just stop there. Don't just go by, that's it, that's all. You need to go back and apply the hours after the project and the design phase is done, the procurement. Make sure you were accurate. Make sure you quoted that properly. Make sure you apply it against your flat rate and see where you were. We've had projects now, thanks to renderings over the last 5 years and the clarity of those renderings. Our revisions are almost non-existent. So few revisions, but before renderings were in our offices, we were doing a lot of revisions because people couldn't visualize it the same way. The wall elevations that were colored and the floor elevations that were colored were not the same as a photorealistic rendering. So there is some money that goes into spending for those renderings, but what you get on the back end of closing a project faster with less revisions, time saver, more profitable. Track all of that as well and see what projects you are using more. You'll start to see what rooms you did the photorealistic renderings in are the ones that have the least amount of revisions. That was something that was very clear through our data. So check that out for yourselves. And where did you spend the most time? And where did it go over? Where did you spend more time than you thought? And were you surprised by that? And it's not about blame and it's not about shame. It's about learning and growing and being profitable in your business. So there is no shame involved in this whatsoever. If you have a team, make this a regular discussion, because here we had to do it a lot until everyone got in the habit. And then it went a little too severe. Like I was getting went to the loo, like they had to take a pee break. I was like, okay, we've gone a little too far. I don't need to know how many bathroom breaks you took in the day. I just need to make sure that if somebody is here 8 hours of the day, that at least 7 hours of that time is allotted for, whether there was a 30-minute lunch break, a coffee break, whatever. 7 hours needs to be allotted for. You can't be here for 8 hours and only track 2. Because I had to say to my team, how would you like it if I only paid you for the 2 hours out of the 8 hours that you were here? Because you wouldn't like that, but that's what's actually happening to me. I can now not quantify where you were and where your time went. So how do I know what project to put that in? I am losing time. I am now not able to charge that to a client. And that's when they really got that aha moment for them, realizing if I was threatening, which I legally obviously can't do and would never do, but if I couldn't pay them for 6 of the 8 hours that they were sitting here, that's a problem. So this allowed us to all get on the same page, and we all grew together, and we found that involving everyone takes that pressure off, and it becomes how can we get better together instead of who messed up. All right. So the profitability mindset and efficiency is your reward that we touched on earlier. This is so important, and I would love you to write this down if you're listening. If you get more efficient and you can do in 60 hours that used to take you 90 hours, you do not discount your fee. That efficiency is a reward for building systems, growing your business, investing time and effort in your business and in your process. Think of it like a chef. If you can cook the perfect meal in half the time, do they charge you less? Of course not. You're not just selling hours, you're selling results, your expertise, and your experience. And by the way, your clients are paying for your vision, your eye, and your unique touch. They are not buying time. They are buying transformation. So let me share one more story from the Profit Academy. As a designer in the program who absolutely hated tracking her hours. She resisted it for months, but finally I just said, I need you to do it for one project. And she agreed to try it just to see, just humor me. I even said, I'll pay you. I'll pay you to do it. Like just jokingly, like, kind of like what we do with our clients. If you don't love that paint color, I'll paint it back just to kind of get them to kind of get on your side. And I've done that 3 times in my 3 decades of doing this. And never have I had to pay to have it done. And all of it fell in love with the paint. So I'm using that as a referral because that's what I do with my own clients. So anyway, circle back. All right. So guess what? She realized she was spending almost double the time she had budgeted on the final install phase. So running around, styling, fixing, answering last minute questions, doing the deficiency list, but by tracking it, she saw the pattern. So she did not just one project, she ended up doing 3 projects. And guess what? All 3 were the same. So by tracking her time and refining her install process, setting clear expectations with the client, and started finishing not only ahead of schedule, which wowed her clients, but suddenly her flat fee projects were more profitable and, more importantly, less stressful. So the lesson, you can't improve what you don't measure. I'm going to repeat that. You cannot improve what you cannot measure. Was that an aha moment for you too? Okay, so here's your homework for this week. Track your hours on every project and track your hours every day, all day. See where your time goes. Are you getting sucked into social media a couple of times a day and lost track of time? Let's take a look and see where you're spending time. And at the end, I want you to compare what you thought you spent versus what you actually spent on that project. Where did you go over? Where did you save time? Let's highlight those items and find out how we can improve them. So look for one place, just one, where you can streamline, delegate, or improve your process. All these small wins will add up fast, I promise. And if today's episode inspired you at all, please share your aha moment with us in a review. It really helps other designers and decorators find the show. And I really want to help people start thinking about profit first in their business. Plus, I really love reading and sharing all your stories. So don't forget that this was part 2 of a 4-part series. And the next time we get together for this series, we're going to talk about the secret profit centers hiding in plain sight, procurement. How do you handle purchasing? Can you make or break margins? And I can't wait to hear some of your juicy stories and strategies. So until then, design beautifully, track your time, and protect those profits.